What's up everyone, Sam Smyers here. I am an artist and producer in Los Angeles, California. Today we're going to talk about how to mix pop vocals using Ableton Stock Plugins. You don't need expensive third-party plugins to mix pop vocals. So in the description to this video there is a pop vocal mixing cheat sheet which you can go through that shows how to do this step by step, and there's also an audio effects rack that you can download, and it's a vocal chain. You can drop that into Ableton and use that as a template for when you're mixing your vocals. So let's get into this vocal. So let me first go ahead and play this track with the lead vocal.
Don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly. If you don't believe in me, don't you be like that. I will love you forever. If you don't believe in me, yeah. You won't go fooling me twice now, baby. I'm sorry, that's the way it is, yeah. You won't go fooling me twice now, baby. I'm sorry, that's the way it is, yeah.
So that's the vocal we're going to go over today, and this is all done with stock plugins. And so right now you can see I created my own vocal chain, which is going to be in the description of this video and you can download it. So here we have just the vocal dry, and I'm going to play it at the level 0 dB, and I'm going to play it with the track.
Don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly. If you don't believe in me, don't you be like that. I will love you forever.
So we can hear that it's pretty well recorded. There's not a lot of background noise in the vocal, and we just need to try and set it in the mix a little bit. So let me go ahead and adjust it just using the gain and see if I can get it sitting pretty good in the mix without adding any effects.
Don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly. If you don't believe in me, don't you be like that. I will love you forever.
All right, I think gain-wise that sounds pretty good. So first, what we want to do is we want to add a low-cut filter. We want to cut off frequencies generally below 100 hertz. You won't need anything for vocals, so we'll go ahead and add a low-cut filter here. And then we want to take out any frequencies that we don't feel like we need in the vocal, reduce any things that are bothering us, and we'll do that with subtractive EQ. And so basically, if you are using the EQ8, which is the stock plugin in Ableton, then you can hit this little headphone button, and when you click on a little node, it will focus specifically on that frequency. And so what I can do is I can raise it up and I can sweep through the frequency range and try and find frequencies that are irritating or bothersome. So I hear just a little bit of stuff in the low right here, so I'm going to take some of that out. There's a little bit I thought it might have been a little irritating around this 2K range. It's not too bad though, so I think I'll just leave that alone for now. Now, Ableton doesn't really have a deesser, so what I have done is I have this is just a compressor, and if you hit this little arrow and you unfold the compressor, then it has these options for a sidechain and EQ. And what you can do with the EQ is you can choose a filter and filter out frequencies that you don't want coming through the compressor. So for example, this right here is a low cut filter, and basically it cuts off low end information and it only lets the high end information pass through. So if I hit this headphone button, we can listen to what is coming into this compressor. So what a deesser does is if you focus it on a frequency around maybe 5 to 7K, that is where a lot of the S frequencies come through. So what I've done is I set this to only let frequencies above this 5K range and coming through. So then whenever an S will hit it, then it will bring down the volume and act as a deesser.
Don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly if you don't believe in me.
So we can see as it hits the S, it hits this gain reduction a lot harder.
If you think like that, I will love you endlessly.
On that endlessly, we see that happening. So we can do that, but a more accurate way to do this, if you don't have a deesser or you want to have more control, is to actually just cut out the S's or reduce them in volume, so reduce the gain.
I will love you endlessly.
And what you do is you look for these little football areas, and what I could do is I could just cut this and reduce the volume. So now I've just reduced the gain on this S sound, and it will sound quieter. So yeah, you wouldn't want to do it that much. So we could do that. Or, so what I like to do instead is I like to take the S and I like to put them on a new track. And by doing this, I can put all the S sounds on a new track, and then I can control the volume of all these S sounds and EQ them and affect them how I want. Because what happens is if I start making changes to any of the effects on this lead track, so if I boost the EQ, add more compression, if I take down the volume here and I add EQ, then all of a sudden that S sound is going to be a lot brighter. Say I'm adding EQ to like a higher range, so that S sound is all of a sudden going to be brighter. And then I'm going to have to take it down even more, and it's just going to cause a lot more issues. So I have the S back at 0 gain. I'm going to take it down onto the new track and make sure there's like a little bit of a fade on each side. And let's go ahead and play those together. And now what I can do is I can just take down the volume of that S sound on the new track. Okay. And I can go through and find the other S sounds. And I can also, if there are harsh consonants, for example, at the beginning of this line,
Don't you?
She says don't, so that D is kind of hard.
Don't you think like that?
And what I can do is I can just pull a little bit of a fade on that hard consonant.
Don't you think
right here is a little bit of an S sound, so I can cut this, pull it down to the new track.
don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly if you don't.
And then I'm going to go through and go ahead and do that for the rest of the track. And then what we can do is we can also listen to these breaths are pretty loud, so we can go ahead and take down the gain of these breaths.
If you don't believe in me, don't you be like that. I will love you for. Don't you be like that. I will love you forever. If you don't believe in me, yeah.
Now we're going to add some compression.
Don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly. If you don't believe in me, don't you be like that. I will love you forever. If you don't believe.
So we're only knocking off a little bit of gain on here, And what you can do instead of knocking off a ton of gain, if you need a little more gain control, is you could duplicate this and add 2 compressors in a series, and that tends to work a lot better than completely crushing the sound.
Don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly.
Like that.
Don't you think like that? I will love you.
So now that we have the compressor on there, then we'll add a little bit of high-end EQ just to brighten up this vocal a little bit.
Don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly. If you don't believe in me, don't you be like.
All right, that sounds pretty good. That's around a little bit around 2K, and then we have a high shelf around 5K and above. And then after that, we will add some harmonics to the vocal, and we'll do that either by adding some kind of distortion or saturation, and that will really thicken up the vocal. It can also add some brightness to the vocal without making it too harsh. And so what we can do is we can add a saturator plugin, and see right here I have the dry and wet. I don't have it at 100. I'll usually blend this in a little bit.
Forever, if you don't believe in me, yeah. Forever, if you don't believe in me, yeah.
Okay. We will start adding the reverb and the delays. So now when you add a effect, if I take this reverb and I add it in, I can right click and go to group, and then I'll create an audio effects rack. Hit this button right here, and then now I can rename this as reverb. And I'll also want to create another chain that is just the clean signal. So then I can have a clean signal and a reverb signal. So if I solo this,
Forever,
it'll just be the clean signal. If I solo this, it'll be the signal with the reverb on it. I'm going to put the quality on high. I am going to then make sure this is at 100, and then I can just start changing it to get it to sound how I want it.
don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly. If you don't believe.
All right, I think that sounds pretty good. What we also want to do is we want to go ahead and EQ the reverb. We want to treat our effects and our reverbs, our delays, we want to treat them like instruments. So I'm going to take out some low end.
Don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly. If you don't believe in me, yeah.
All right, that sounds pretty good. So next I'm going to add another chain, and this is going to be the delay. I'm going to add the echo plugin. I had this set at an 1/8 note delay, it's synced. And I also have right here, you can start EQing it right here. I have taken off some of the high, taken off some of the low.
Don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly. If you don't believe.
So I can also add some reverb. I can make it a ping pong delay.
Don't you think like that? I will.
We're just going to keep it at stereo right now. We're not going to add any reverb. Maybe add a little bit of reverb.
Don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly. If you don't believe.
So let's listen to that in the track.
Don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly. If you don't believe in me.
All right, so we have reverb, we have delay, and we usually want to keep a lead vocal pretty center in the mix. And adding reverb will add some width to it. Adding delay will add some width to it. We can also put in a slap delay, which will add a little bit more width while keeping the main vocal centered. And so I'm going to add a little bit of slap delay, and we'll see how that sounds. This is just the echo plugin. This is going to be the slapback preset.
Don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly.
So there it is at full volume, and then we'll pull it back to get it to sound good with the vocal.
Don't you think like that? I will love you endlessly. If you don't believe in me, don't you be like that.
So I'm going to go ahead and do the second part of this vocal, and then I'm going to show you some other things that I've done to this second part just to give it a little bit more thickness. So now for the second part of the vocal, I took out the S's and I processed it the same way as I did for the first part. And because this becomes a pretty spacey part of the song without a lot of instruments, I want to add a little bit more thickness to the vocal. If this, for example, were a harmony, you could just copy the processing from the lead vocal onto the new harmony and apply it similarly, maybe make a few changes, but because it was the same person singing in the same room on the same mic, a lot of the processing will transfer over. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this, and I am going to go ahead and consolidate this, right-click, consolidate, and see I have all the S's chopped out. So I'm going to go ahead and transpose this -12 to make it low. I'm going to change the warp mode to complex. So now I have this deep, low vocal that sounds pretty cool. And I'm going to go ahead and turn that down. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Yeah. So now, because this is lower and it's going to be sitting underneath this vocal, we probably don't want to boost the highs as much. I'm going to take down some of the highs, and let me check some of this low end because we might need to take out a little bit more of the low end. You won't go fooling me twice now, baby. I'm sorry, that's the way. So I'm pulling down the gain a lot right here. So you can see I have it at -13.5. Instead of taking it down so much there, I could take it down on this utility plugin that I have at the end of my chain, which I always do. So let's just go ahead and take it down -5. And so now we have an octave down lower. Let's add an octave up higher. You won't go fooling me twice, baby. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Yeah. So notice I have all the S's cut out, and basically you don't really need that many S sounds in a track. You could cut them out of harmonies. I left them out of these harmonies because all that I really need is that one S sound coming from the lead vocal. Now for this high part, I am going to change it to Complex Pro because it's going to give it a little bit of a different sound. If I just do Complex, it's a little chipmunky. If I do Pro, it sounds like somebody's actually singing it in a higher octave. And I think that'll blend better, so let's take a listen. You won't go fooling me twice now, baby. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Yeah. Let's listen to it without those other low octave and high octave vocals. You won't go fooling me twice now, baby. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Yeah. I'll put them back in. You won't go fooling me twice now, baby. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Yeah. So there you have it. This vocal chain I have in the link to the description to this video, so you can download the vocal chain and put it on your vocals. And I also have a mixing cheat sheet that will walk you through some of these concepts that I've gone through in this video. So there you have it. That is how you mix pop vocals only using Ableton Stock Plugins. So go ahead and download that pop vocal mixing cheat sheet in the description to this video, and if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. See y'all soon.